There's a lot of work, love, sweat, and sometimes tears that go into making my videos, and I'm going to show you how I put everything together, from filming to editing and everything in between. This video was made in partnership with MSI. We're hosting a competition where you can win a monitor just like mine, so stick around to find out how to participate. In the first year of YouTube, I actually used my phone to film all of my videos, and since phone cameras are getting better and better each year, they're a great option to start out with. Then I upgraded to the Canon 77D, which was a great quality, beginner-friendly camera, and it also had a flip-out screen, so I definitely recommend it. Last year, I upgraded to the Sony a7 III with a Tamron lens. It's a very bulky and heavy and non-beginner friendly setup, but I use it for so many different things that it was worth saving up for. If you're looking to start making videos, I can definitely link some affordable, beginner friendly equipment in the description, along with everything else I show in this video. Every video starts with a planning phase because I need to figure out the structure and what I need to film. So for this, I either use my bullet journal or I use Notion in case it's a very complex video and I need to keep adding things as they come to mind. I film my top-down bullet journal videos at my work desk, and for this I installed a shelf above it where I can mount my camera using this arm. Usually for top-down videos you'd need a heavy-duty tripod, especially if your camera is this heavy, and those also take up a lot of space, which I didn't have, so this is the most efficient way that I found for my setup. Filming at my desk also allows me to connect the camera to my computer and use the monitor to see exactly what I'm doing in real time, and I can also control the camera settings from the computer as well. You can also connect most cameras to either your phone or tablet instead, which is a great option, but it does have a bit of a delay. I only use natural light coming from the left of my desk, which does mean that sometimes I have to wait for the weather to be favorable. One of my favorite lighting tricks is to place white foam boards to bounce off the light on the other side of the light source, which is a subtle change that can make a big difference. The greatest equipment can't always make up for bad lighting, so figuring out a good lighting setup is the easiest way to improve the quality of your videos. I do have artificial lights and softboxes, but they're so bulky and inconvenient that I prefer not to use them unless I absolutely have to, and I also kind of prefer the look of natural light better. Once I have everything set up on my desk, I'm ready to start filming. When I film my journaling videos, I always lock the focus on the notebook. Otherwise, the autofocus would keep switching the focus from the notebook to my hand as it moves across, which is obviously not what I want unless I'm filming a close-up. Sometimes I also shoot in 4K so that I can zoom in easily while editing, instead of having to zoom in with the lens and having to move everything around to fit the frame. For shots like these where I transition between different angles, since I don't have a secondary camera, I just change the position of the camera that I have. Sometimes I also shoot the same thing from different angles. For example, I shot this flip through of my journal once from the top, and then I moved the camera and shot it once again from the side. So afterwards I can just switch the angles back and forth during editing. For shots like these, and especially for time lapses, I just use my phone mounted on a lazy arm, and I also try to get close-up shots with my main camera at the same time. The editing process definitely takes the most time and patience. Depending on the video, it can take anywhere from a couple of days to a few weeks to put everything together, so it's really important to me to have a setup that can handle and streamline my workload. This is where my computer comes in, which is the MSI Creator P100X, which has hugely accelerated my workflow and literally cut some of my editing time in half. This computer is as powerful on the inside as it is beautiful on the outside, and it only took me the 20 minutes of setting it up to realize that it really was designed with creative people in mind. Its powerful processor combined with the top-of-the-line graphics card can handle all of the intense rendering, multitasking, and video editing that I do. And I actually put this to the test, and as you can see, compared to my previous setup, the MSI Creator renders my projects in half the time. Another huge difference in the editing process is that I can now preview in real time at full quality, even the videos that are sped up. So here you can see how my old setup had trouble keeping up and the preview became very choppy, whereas the MSI Creator can handle it with no trouble. It also takes up half the space of my old computer, which means I can finally have it on my desk and easily connect whatever I need. Since I'm always either multitasking or editing complex projects, I needed a monitor that has plenty of real estate for it, and the 5K ultra-wide MSI Prestige Monitor definitely delivers. It has nano IPS technology, which means that it reproduces very accurate colors and high-end picture quality, which is another aspect that's crucial to my work. So together with MSI, we are hosting a competition on Instagram where you can win one of these monitors. The challenge for you is to create a thumbnail for my next video, which is going to be an apartment tour, and all you have to do is follow the link in the description, download the images, and use them however you want to create a thumbnail. I'll have all of the information on how you can enter down below, so don't forget to check it out, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit my videos, but to be honest, the things that I do can be done in any other video editing software, and I will link some alternatives in the description. Premiere is a powerful software that's kind of intimidating at first, but you only need to know a few things to get started in editing. So once I import all of the footage, I start working on a rough cut. This means I go through every single clip and cut out the parts that I don't need. Even for videos that end up being under 10 minutes long, I still have to go through hours and hours of footage to cut out the parts that I don't need, speed them up, or just try to make the footage look more interesting. There are two ways I use to get really smooth shots. The first is very simple. I just search for the warp stabilizer effect and drag it onto the clip. I always leave the default settings, except maybe sometimes I turn down the smoothing percentage. Another way is to set your camera to a high frame rate before you film the shots, and then you can decrease the speed of the clip. This is going to create a similar kind of effect as the warp stabilizer, and the shots will become much smoother. I keep my titles pretty simple, and to create them I just use this type tool over here, which automatically creates a text layer above your clip, and then I just play around with the different fonts and sizes until I'm happy with how it looks. Sometimes I also add a small wiggle effect by dropping the turbulent displace effect on top of it and playing around with the settings. I also usually just place a wipe transition at the beginning and end of the titles as well. For the little animations you see through some of my videos, I use Procreate on my iPad and a very simple technique. I start by drawing the doodle of whatever I want to animate, and then I create a new layer on top. Then I go into the canvas settings and turn on Animation Assist, which basically means that every layer will become a frame and you can slightly see the layer that's underneath. So then I just trace over it one more time in the new layer, and you don't want this to be perfect because that's exactly what's going to create the effect. Then I go into the settings here at the bottom and choose about 3 frames per second, and you can hit play to see what your little animation will look like. Finally, I hide the background so that it becomes transparent, and then I export it as an animated GIF. You can also use the exact same process to animate your handwriting, and usually I make a text layer to use as a guide, and of course then you can use any font that you want. There are lots of creative things you can do with this technique, and of course the more complex they are, the longer it takes to make them, but I think the simple ones add a personal touch as well. Sometimes there can be private information in my journal that I want to blur out, so I'm going to show you how I do that as well. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer that I place on top of my clip. Then I drag and drop the effect called camera blur onto the clip, and then I click on this rectangle right here. This is going to create a mask, so basically only that area will be blurred. I usually set it to about 3%, and then I start moving the points to cover up that section that I want. Finally, I just check to see where the mask should start and stop so that you can't see the info while I'm flipping the pages, and this is what it ends up looking like. Color grading makes a huge difference because it can really change the look and the vibe of a video, and luckily you can do a lot within these basic correction settings. You can also go into the Creative tab and browse through the different looks to see if any of them work well with your footage. And of course, you can download custom ones as well. So these are like filters for your videos. I always make sure to do the color grading on an adjustment layer that I drag on top of all of my clips, and this allows me to color grade all of them at the same time instead of having to go through each and every clip. If the lighting conditions differ between the clips, I go in separately and adjust the exposure so that they all match. The transition that I use most often at the moment is the wipe transition, and I just change it to start from the top corner. I usually record the voiceover right after I finish the rough cut. I do kind of have to script my voiceovers because otherwise I would just sit there for hours trying to figure out what I want to say, so I go through the rough cut and make notes. I use a microphone that was a hand-me-down from my brother, who's an audio engineer, but I know other people use their phones to record voiceovers, so there are plenty of great options for any budget. Once I finish recording the voiceover, I obviously cut out the parts that I don't need, edit out the ums and the stutters, and I rename the clips as I go to help me synchronize them to the video later. If you can't see the name of your audio clips in Premiere, you can go to this settings button and choose Show Audio Names. Finally, I just make sure that the maximum audio levels reach about -6 decibels, so I usually have to bump up the audio gain to bring them up, so this way the voiceover isn't too quiet or too loud. I get my music from Epidemic Sound, which is a subscription-based website, but it's totally worth it because they have tons of songs and sound effects and pretty much everything I need. I also recently discovered Thematic, which is free, but of course you have to credit the author in the description. Once I have the music picked out, I set the volume really low because I don't want it to distract from the voiceover, and then I just copy-paste it to match the length of my video. Next, I bring up the volume during the pauses in the voiceover, and I apply the default transitions between the audio clips. I usually edit the intro and outro last, using a mix of some of my favorite clips to showcase the content of the video. So that's about it for the editing part. It usually takes about 1 to 2 hours of editing per minute of video. So if a video ends up being 10 minutes long, it means it took me anywhere from 10 to 20 hours to edit, or sometimes even longer depending on the video. The last thing I'm going to talk about is how I edit my thumbnails. So after I finish filming a video, while my camera is still set up, I start taking pictures for the thumbnail. If it's a journaling video, I focus the camera on my notebook and then set it on timer so that I can get both of my hands in the shot. After I choose the picture that I like most, I open it in Lightroom and play around with the settings until I'm happy with my edit. I usually bump up the exposure and the highlights, and I also decrease the saturation of certain colors. This really depends on the picture and the look you're going for, so there's no universal formula. A more simple way would be to go into the presets and see if you can find one that works best with your photos. Usually the handwriting ends up being washed out, so I use Photoshop to make it stand out again. To do this, I go to Select, Color Range, and choose Shadows, and then just adjust the range until I can see that all the handwriting is white. Click OK and then go to Adjustments, Levels, and drag the black slider to the right until the handwriting becomes darker. Of course, this is going to affect some parts that we don't want, so click on the mask thumbnail, select the brush tool, choose the color black, and then go over everything else except the handwriting. You can also alt-click on the mask to see what you're doing and make sure that only the handwriting is white, and then alt-click again to go back when you're finished. So this just makes the handwriting stand out, especially when you see it as a small thumbnail. Finally, I add the title and any other decorations, and I do these in Photoshop because they're nothing complicated, but you can also do them in Procreate as well. I do love getting creative with my thumbnails because I think it can make a simple picture look more interesting, and I also try to make sure it looks good when it's really zoomed out as well. Once I upload the video to YouTube and get over the pit in my stomach, I hit publish, and then I'm pretty much ready to start the process all over again. There's so much more that goes into the process of creating videos, and I feel like I barely scratched the surface, but I hope this was helpful, whether you learned something or you were just curious what goes on behind the scenes. But anyways, do let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like to know more about, and also don't forget to enter the competition to win an MSI monitor. That info and everything else will be in the description. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye guys!